4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Gilia Taylor with the Collaborative Firm, and welcome to the Let's Talk Community Series for College Park. We are happy to have you here. We know that other people will be continuing to drop in and join us, and we're happy that everybody is coming along. We have an exciting program for you, but today I'd like to start with a few housekeeping rules that we want to address. First of all, great to set expectations, so I want you to know that today's session is expected to last from 4 o'clock till approximately 5:15. At the end of the session, we will be taking questions from the audience. If you have a question and you're watching us via Zoom, be sure to include your question in the comment box. We will also be doing polls during the presentation, and you'll be reminded of this, but each of the polls will take 10 to 15 seconds. And if you have a comment about the polls, you can also reference the number of the poll in the comment box or in the chat box and add your comment after you voted on it. The chat box is available only if you're watching via Zoom, so you'll be able to participate in the polls that way. If you are watching us via any of the social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, wherever else, we ask that you leave comments there. You will not be able to participate in the polls actively like the people who are watching on Zoom, but we do want to hear your feedback. So please be sure and reference the number of your slide and make a comment on Facebook or wherever else you're watching. We're glad to have you. Please note that all microphones will be muted during the presentation. Any comments that you have, we ask that you type them into the chat box or into the comment section on social media. The last thing that I have for you is a review of today's agenda. What we're going over today is the 6th West development, which was formerly known as Airport City. You're going to love hearing a whole lot more about it. We're going to have someone come over and give you a project overview. After that, we're going to talk a bit about the survey that some of you may have completed online on the College Park website. We'll be talking about the results that we got from those surveys. And then we'll talk about the actual 6th West development, the possible look, feel, and function of the development. So we'll have a healthy discussion. Today's presenters are Artie Jones, who is the Director of Economic Development for College Park, Michelle Alexander, who is the City Planner for the City of College Park, Bill D. St. Aubin, I always have fun with his name. He is the CEO of the Sizemore Group, and Deanna Murphy is the Director of Planning for the Sizemore Group. We have a lot of great information for you, so stay tuned. At this point, we'd like to get started with Mr. Artie Jones.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for the Let's Talk series. My name is Artie Jones, and I'm the Economic Development for the City of College Park. The reason that we're here for this Let's Talk series is that we would like to get feedback from the community on the 6th West mixed-use development. We would like feedback from the community of what they would like to see in the future to be a part of this development moving forward. Now, where is the 6th development located? Well, it's located just west of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. The development is approximately 311 acres and includes College Park Municipal Golf Course, which is a 9-hole golf course. This particular area was once a neighborhood, a huge neighborhood of about 1,800 residents. During the time of the airport's expansion, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, when they expanded, the airport purchased large sums of property in this particular area. Over the years, the City of College Park Business and Industrial Development Authority acquired the property from the City of Atlanta. And as a result, we own approximately 98% of the property within this area. This happens to be the largest contiguous acreage near Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. With that being said, the property was just sitting there, and we said that, hey, we would like to develop this property. So the City Council authorized the Economic Development Department to hire a master planning firm. And the master planning firm which we hired was the Sizemore Group. The Sizemore Group right now, we're working with them they've actually developed a master plan for us, and now we're working on district plans. At this time, I'm going to turn the time over to Bill D. St. Aubin of the Sizemore Group, and he'll provide you with more background information.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited about this meeting and getting all your input, which is really what today is about, is hearing from you. But we want to give you a brief outline of how we got to where we are, and then we want to really dive into your thoughts and your opinions on where we're headed with this project. The vision that we came up with, and when our firm, all the stakeholders we met with, was a global destination rooted in diversity, equity, and inclusion, easily accessible to all, from local residents to world travelers, a show equally designed. So that was the framework, and I would call where we're at as a FERC level. There's still a lot of room for input and decisions as we move forward. So, but we do have I think a really good framework, and we've done a lot of really good research on the market that I'm gonna briefly cover. So here's what it looks like today. It's across the street from the International Convention Center. It's near MARTA, the main street. It's near a golf course. It's near a beautiful historic downtown, one of the largest historic districts in Georgia. I mean, it's just a really sweet location. And it's kind of like a lost city right now. There were residents that were moved out for the area, and the trees have overgrown, and we want to find some way to incorporate memories of what has happened in the past on this site, and incorporate the actual framework, that reincorporate the framework that's there today and has been there a long time. Next. So this is our framework plan, and I love the new name called 6 West. You can see these streets that come from Main Street, starting at Princeton, Harvard, Columbia Avenue, John Wesley, and down, and those all head west and right into the Main Street. So we kept all those historic streets and kept the grid for the most part. It was a decent grid, 400 by 400, and then we looked at the different, and that grid extends all the way to the golf course, and we have kind of different zones for the property based on market forces and character areas. It's a really big project, and so we have a residential area in the green to the way back, and this is something that's probably good to explain to the community up front. It was an interesting point as we got into it. It would be awesome to add a lot of residential back, but there's deed restrictions on the property because of its proximity to the flight path. So there's limited areas where we can add residential easily. It can be done in other areas than we've shown, but it's more of a challenge. So you see it back, that area back is near the other residential and up close to the golf course, already has a developer that has a letter of interest and is residential moving forward. And then the dark blue you see, everything's mixed use, but it's predominant use, and that is corporate office. This is an incredible site for office. We saw demand for 500,000 square feet in our market analysis by consulting. But we also think there may be some interest from international corporate headquarters or even local corporate headquarters, given your proximity to all these great assets and proximity to the airport. And then in the yellow, you see the Camp Creek frontage, which has a lot of interest because, it's the way retail and different uses look. They like the exposure of the traffic on Camp Creek Parkway and the number of cars going by and the easy access. And we have, at this point, we have a hotel and some really interesting restaurants that are interested in this area. Then we have a luxury retail commercial district. We looked around the world, our market study did, and we also looked around the Atlanta region, and we found that there was these kind of premium main streets that were developed around national and international airports. And so we wanted to, and there was a hole in the marketplace, in the Atlanta region, to travel to something like that. There's nothing like that on this side of town. And so that's what that, the 2 blocks around the red, plus there's also an entertainment venue and a food hall that we'll talk more about as we go down further. And it wouldn't be all retail, just like the office wouldn't be all office. There'd be some retail in it. And then you have, I skipped a really fun component. The light blue is the entertainment district located around, and it's more like golf-related entertainment, golf-related entertainment venues, and also there's some research we've done about how can we improve the golf clubhouse and what components would work well around there that could be related to events and rentals to stay in. And so that whole area, which is right next to the office, becomes a regional amenity and a neighborhood amenity at the same time. And then the area I'm most excited about that really didn't come out of our market analysis, but came out of the right thing to do, is how can we get the local community involved as much as possible at all levels of this project. And we identified about 8 city blocks, maybe 10 city blocks for involvement. So potentially a lot of big can come in and do some events, but it's aside in here.
I'm sorry, pardon me, Bill, pardon the interruption. You've got a bad connection there and you're going in and out a little bit. Is there anything you can do to adjust your mic or your whatever you're using there? Kind of got static going.
Testing. Is this better?
It is better. Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting, but
sorry about that.
Yeah.
I pulled the view back so my head wasn't so big, but now you're stuck with my big head. All right. So
can you say that whole part again about the downtown infill? Because I think we missed all of that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I'm glad if that's the part it went, I'm glad to repeat that. So in the orange district, we call downtown infill retail and commercial district. We think that's really important, and luckily it's seen a lot of interest, but the idea behind that wasn't so much of our market analysis as that we wanted to do the right thing by the community. There's a lot of interest from your elected officials to make sure that the community is a part of the subject every step of the phase and at every level. And so what we have set up is an incremental development district where small players can come in and do a single smaller building that's affordable, and you can begin to build some character and richness in that area. And so there's a way to kind of stimulate local investment in the project and to build that community back that was partially lost in the buyout. And the other piece we have in there is a cultural building that we'll talk about later that could be a lot of different things, but it relates to, we want it to relate to your history and your place making. We did save the Brady Center too in the project. Next, I don't know if that's the last one, but next slide. Yeah, so our process we're going through right now, so that was the framework plan, big project, lots going on, a lot of moving parts. So how do you kind of, it's a phrase, but how do you eat an elephant? Well, you kind of do it a bite at a time. And we said that you really need to dive down into these kind of districts and find out how each district is going to work, because each district is kind of tailored to a different kind of developer, and there's different kind of parking constraints, different topographies, different water issues. And so we took those districts and developed a district planning process, which you are now part of, which the biggest thing that was missing in the framework, we did meet with all the critical stakeholders from the region at a level, but the critical thing missing is you guys. So this is the engagement of the community in these district plans, and this begins that process. So we're diving down now, and eventually what we're going to do is take your input. Go to the next slide. So I don't want one. Yeah, we're going to take the community and take the market plus the offers we're beginning to get on property and the funding, and find where they all overlap. And we can't without your, so if the community wants it, the market says we want to do it, and there's funding for it. That's what we want to focus on and move forward with. So this is a really important meeting. I'm so glad you all can join in, and there'll be other opportunities we go along that Michelle will talk about, and that community input's being led by Michelle's team. So I'm going to turn it over to her, I believe, next.
Great.
Yes.
Thanks, Bill. Again, I'm Michelle Alexander. I'm with the collaborative firm, and our team is doing the outreach. And I also serve as your city planner. I have the great privilege of serving as your city planner. We really wanted a good turnout for today. I'm reporting back, we have about 90 people online right now joining this meeting. So applause and thank you for helping us get the word out. We had an initial event where I did a video, and that thanks to the communications team, your director of communications, Gerald, put that together, and that's online. You can go to our webpage, www.collegeparkga.com, and go to 6 West, and there's all this information there, including a video that goes a little deeper into the background. And we have a survey that's online. I'm going to talk about the results of that. And I wanted you to be aware that the meeting today is being recorded. So share this with your friends if people couldn't make it, or if you have to cut out a little early, you can come back to our webpage and you can see the rest of what you missed. But we're also going to have a couple more events. We are going to have a joint meeting with City Council and with the Development Authority to share the results to date, let them know where we are with the process and what you all have been telling us as a community, your preferences and what you'd like to see in the 6 West development. We're inviting you to come back June 11th at 4 o'clock. We're going to present the results. It's going to be another virtual event. It's going to be a little more interactive, like a town hall type event, so we can talk a little bit more and have more of an exchange. So you'll see the results of all the work that we're doing. And again, I just want to remind you that that's at www.collegeparkga.com. And if you send us an email, we can add you to the list and make sure you're aware of next steps. Right now, though, I'm going to talk about the survey. The survey it's currently online. The results I'm sharing with you today are through April 30th. You can still get online through the middle end of May and give us some more of your feedback. So I'm just reporting what we've gotten to date. And thank you for those of you who have taken the survey. We've got 150 responses. Just letting you know that a bulk of that has come from Ward 1, which isn't a surprise given the location. The next slide is showing us that, let's see if you can go to the next slide. Most people who responded live here. So if you're worried about how or who is giving their information, the folks who, almost 80% of the folks who took the survey do live here in town. So again, we appreciate that. We know that it's a challenging time to participate in events, so we wanted to make sure that we got the word spread. I want you to know we did send out with your utility bills a hard copy. We didn't rely only on digital. We did send out a hard copy flyer so that over 8,000 of these mailings went to people in the community so that you could find out about the meeting. We're going to ask you also, please share this information with your neighbors, with your networks, with people you work with. So now to get to some of the results of it, I know it's a little hard to read, but the bulk of what you're seeing there shows the range of from 1 to 5, where people were ranking what's the most important element to them, whether it's is it quality of the mixed use or walkable development. On this slide, I'm going to report to you that it seems like we want it all. Almost all of the components had a 4, was really high up there. So everything from great quality of development, but also very active event spaces and things like that. So one topic that got a 5 was safety. So as the designing team puts this together and as we program the site and develop the site, that tells us what we're going to need to do for services and how the site can really address that concern, that safety was a high priority. You also talked about the green space, the open space, what matters to you the most. And the results of this speak to, I think, the programming. You really want to see, those of you who took the survey really want to see experience. So you're talking about things like recreation and public art. Those are the key elements that you want to see for your open space. You're less interested, a little lukewarm about things like playgrounds. The next question is another one where I say, my reading of it is, we want it all. It asked about what kind of streetscape elements do you want? And by streetscape, we mean that public space that makes up our roads and our sidewalks and our bicycle spaces. So most of the response that you see there had 4s along almost all indicators of things like we want wide sidewalks, we want dedicated bike lanes, but we also want experience. So you have also a 4 for things like active sidewalks where we can have outdoor dining and things like that. A lukewarm response was where bicycles would share the road. You gave that a 3. You're indicating that's less interesting than really wanting to have dedicated bike lanes, for example, for your streetscape. The things that you want to improve about the golf course. So we have this amazing amenity here at the golf course. And I found it interesting that 25%, a quarter of us who took the survey, you think it's just fine. I think that really speaks to what a great amenity it is. About a quarter of you are saying, you know, it doesn't really need improvement. 43%, however, did see a need for improving the clubhouse. So to me, that speaks about having that public aspect of the golf course improved. And then also, so the majority of you wanted to see some sort of improvement on the golf course. And we'll talk more about that in the next section of this meeting today. I was thrilled to see the results. How many of you want to come to 6 West by foot? Almost all of you said you're gonna want to come at least occasionally. Over half of us said we want to frequently, regularly, often come to this area by foot. So that really tells the designers how important that is, that we make this as walkable and inviting as possible for the pedestrian. On the bicycle, we were less excited necessarily. Only about 30% of us said that we would come by bicycle on a frequent basis. And only a handful of folks said that they would never come at all by bicycle. That may speak to how safe the facilities are. So we'll talk again more about that later, hear your feedback on exactly what that would look like for bicyclists. The next 3 slides were our open-ended questions where we said, just tell us in your own words, what are you most excited about? And the thing that you're most excited about really seemed to me spoke about that experience, creating experience with quality restaurants. You want to see new areas of open space and dining, and you're really focused on having that quality. And it was fun to hear some of the comments where you were saying, I want visitors to come here. I want to bring my guests to this great part of our home here in the community. And some of you also answered that you wanted to make sure it was for all of the community. And the next slide speaks about concerns. Most of you said traffic. Or a lot of you spoke about traffic was a concern, and safety and crime. And similarly in the next slide, when we asked, well, what are the challenges you see? That was a challenge you saw, that traffic was going to be something we need to address, and crime is something you're concerned about. So hopefully when we talk later in the presentation, we'll share with you some of the mitigation about traffic and how great design and great transit can help us with that. So I'm going to turn it over to Deanna Murphy. She is with the Sizemore Group, and she's going to talk about some case studies of how other cities and other places have put together great gathering places and mixed-use projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Deanna Murphy. I'm with the Sizemore Group. And as Michelle said, we're going to go over some case studies, and it's really your time to start giving us input. So we'll have a series of questions where we're going to ask you to vote. So get ready to engage with us. So the first topic we want to discuss with you is what we're calling cultural placemaking. And that term is really about building from the energy and synergy of what College Park already has going on, as well as the neighborhood that was lost with the removal of the homes in that area. And so we want to find ways to honor the past as well as the current and engaged community that's in College Park now. And so some of the options that we're looking at are things like events. So how can we activate the area when we do have green space and big plazas? Can we have these events that are already happening in College Park? You know, specifically something like the homecoming event, which we know is really big and really key and important to this part of the community, this being the home base for those residents who are participating in the homecoming event. So our first poll for you has to do with a specific kind of venue that we would recommend for the sites, and we want to know if you want, you know, this kind of event there. If this is something you would love, like, or dislike. What it is it's a cultural museum venue where you could have live entertainment, specifically music. We wanted to build off the R&B and hip hop culture already in College Park. So many famous artists have come out of the community, really honoring those folks. And so we're going to ask you to vote whether you love, like, or dislike this idea. And a screen should pop up for you in a second here. And we'll give you about 15 seconds to vote. If there's anything specific that you have in terms of comments about this idea, please leave that in the comment section and reference the slide number so we know which topic you're talking about. Okay, so we have 52% love this idea and 39% like. So this is a positive feedback on this idea. So the next option is library. So this would be more of a public facility that would really draw visitors to the area. This would be a partnership likely with the county, with the city. All these ideas, we are not going to guarantee these are going to happen. We just want to give you some ideas of what could really start to build the cultural identity of the community. And so we're going to ask you again to vote on this one. Okay, this one had an even more positive response, so it's 62% love it. The next option is a food hall / market. This would be a big facility where you could attract local farmers to sell their produce. You could have small independent businesses like restaurants who may not want to buy or lease a large space, could set up a booth and really run out of a more group effort in terms of selling and leasing. And we'll ask you to vote on this idea. Oh, this one had a big response, 86% love it. So that's great. And again, please leave comments in the comment section so that we know why you love or like or dislike certain things. It's really helpful for us in the next steps. The last cultural component is the arts, and this can be done in a number of ways. The images here are actually in Newnan, Georgia, who brought in an artist in residence to vote to showcase the diversity of the community. And so here they actually did portraits of different residents throughout the community and put them up all over to highlight what was so special about the city of Newnan. So we see this as an opportunity to utilize the arts to really amplify the history and the current state of College Park and really tell the story. So please take a few seconds to vote. Okay, so about 57% love it and 34% like it. So overall positive, but maybe not as strong as some of the previous. The next topic we want to talk about is quality mixed use. And for those of you who took the survey, the list on the left side of the screen is the components that were in the survey that we asked what's important to you in terms of quality mixed use. But we've put it down into 4 major characters, that being quality mix of land uses, accessible green space, traffic mitigation, safety, and attractive building styles. And we're going to show you a series of mixed use developments and get your input on what you like or don't like about them. The first one you may be familiar with is Avalon up in Alpharetta. And this is a mixed use community where you have retail around a green space, a theater, and then above the retail is office and residential. Okay, overall positive, 93% like or love this. Again, please let us know in the comments what it is you like, love, or dislike. The next example is Birkdale Village in North Carolina. A little bit different setup than what we saw before, with a linear green space in the middle where they have events and festivals. You can see some tents set up, a theater in the back with retail, housing and office above that. So please take a few seconds to vote. Okay, this one had majority dislike. We would love to know what it is you did not like about this, so please do let us know in the comments. The next is Assembly in DORAVILLE. This is a different development type, as you can see. This has a little bit more of a modern feel to it, high rise in terms of office buildings and some residential. You can see it's also accessible to transit. In the bottom right of the image, there is a MARTA station, similar to what we're looking at Airport City. So we'll ask you to vote whether you love, like, or dislike this type of development. Okay, majority dislike. Again, we would love to know what it is that you dislike about this specific development. So please let us know in the comments. The last image we have is of Rock Row in Portland, Maine. This development, you can see to the right, there's a quarry, and this is really a attraction for them. They'll have entertainment on the quarry in terms of a music venue. There's trails that connect around the quarry to the rest of the community. And then it's really anchored by this retail development in the center here, a little bit lower scale at 2 stories, some rooftop restaurants, office, and some residential intermixed within this. And you can see on the bottom, there's a green space, a smaller green space included as well. So we'll ask you to let us know your thoughts on this one. Okay, this one had majority love it. And I see the flashing going up in the comment section, so thank you everyone for participating in the comments as well. Our next section has to do with architectural styles. So not only do we want to know what kind of developments you want and what kind of mix of uses, but we want to know what does that look like and what is important to you. And so first, we're going to split this into different districts. And so first, we're going to look at the retail district. And as Bill mentioned, that's the luxury retail districts, as well as the frontage area along Camp Creek. And so we have 4 different architectural styles that we're going to ask you to vote on. Choose one, A, B, C, or D. A being industrial, as you can see, it's more brick and metal. B being more of the historic context, like downtown College Park. C being modern, you can see a lot more clean lines. And then D being more futuristic, so something that we haven't seen much of yet. Do we want this to really stand out in terms of being something new and exciting? It'll be new and exciting no matter what, but just another option. Okay, so this none stood out extremely high. We have almost a two-way tie between industrial and futuristic, with not far behind being historic. Because this is so close, we would love to see your comments on this as well. The next area is the office and entertainment district. And so this is the opportunity, because it is further away from the airport, we can go a little bit higher in building heights. And then it's next to the golf course, where we're looking at some more entertainment uses as well. And as Bill mentioned, all of this will be mix of uses, but predominantly we would have some maybe headquartered office here. And so again, we have the 4 different options of modern, historic, industrial, or futuristic. So please let us know which you prefer. Okay, this one, industrial, came out as the highest, followed by modern, historic, and then futuristic. Our next area is the incremental district, and as Bill mentioned, this is the area where we'd like to see smaller infill opportunities, really allowing for the local community to engage in this development. And so in this case, we have industrial, historic, modern, and then instead of a futuristic option, we looked at more of a mix of styles. So in this image, you have a little bit more of a traditional or classical with a modern building in between. And so we're going to ask you to vote on these. Okay, in this case, the modern and the mixed style came up as the 2 front runners. The next topic we want to talk with you all about is green space. And the elements that we looked at in terms of what makes a quality green space are both passive and active uses. So everything from opportunities to watch the planes land and take off to active areas like multi-use fields. Also looking at opportunities for events within the green space, public art, and an opportunity to deal with stormwater management on the whole site. So we have some images that we'd like to get your input on. This first one being in West Atlanta, not too far, a more passive park in terms of having seating, large lawns to sit and play or sit and lay in, and then a playground in the center. This also has stormwater management underneath the park to help deal with water runoff. Okay, this one was majority like and love. This next is more of a linear park, something small that would be a buffer between the retail sidewalk and the street, an opportunity to really just sit, relax, and engage with nature. So please let us know your thoughts on this one. Okay, this one was split almost 3 ways here, with the majority at like it, but followed very closely with a dislike and love. Please do share your thoughts in the comments. The next image is of the green in Duluth, Georgia. Some of you may have seen this green space. In this case, we have a splash pad in the center, a lot of lawn area for events or for just laying out and passive use. A lot of events do happen at this facility, and you can see it is surrounded by civic buildings with the city hall in the back. Okay, this one was again split between like it and dislike it, with a few loved it, few who loved it. The last image is of what we call a pocket park, and this is in LaPeer, Michigan. You can see this was a space between 2 buildings that they infilled with a passive park space, a more hardscape than greenscape in this example, but a place to go and sit down and relax and maybe have some lunch. Okay, this one is 50% dislike, with about 50% on the other side. The next section we have has to do with the golf course, and specifically improvements that we asked about during the survey. So thank you for those who filled out the survey. This gave us an idea of what to focus on here. But those options were improved playability, a longer course, and a new clubhouse. And so first we want to talk about an example. This is Bobby Jones Golf Course here in Atlanta. And Bobby Jones recently went under a renovation from a 9-hole course, similar to what you have here in College Park, to a reverse 9-hole. So each of those holes is played in each direction. So the group would play one direction, and then they would reverse the whole course, and everyone would turn around and play the other way. So it gives them 18 holes to be able to have a full 18-hole facility. They've also done some other improvements to the area in upgrading their driving range, and they work closely with Georgia State University, who uses this facility to really enhance and get some more activity there. They've updated technologies as well. And so you can see here, these are some of the options that we have that we're looking at for the for the City of College Park. One option is the reverse 9-hole, improvements to the driving range, virtual technologies, as well as a Topgolf type venue, something that could accommodate and work well with the golf course next door. What we do want you all to vote on, though, is your thoughts on upgrades to the clubhouse. And so we have an A, B, C, and D option here. A being Barnsley Gardens, which is here in Georgia. In the back near the pond is actually the clubhouse. And then they have a nice green space in front of that with rental homes around it. So if you're having a wedding there, you can rent the homes that sit around the clubhouse and have an event here, and then everyone can stay in the same area. Another option is at the University of Michigan. This is the prairie, more of a prairie style architecture, but a nicer facility, rather large, 2 stories. So you can have big banquets and events there, several different meeting rooms. Option C is a clubhouse, a smaller facility. So it's a little bit more on the clubhouse side as opposed to an event venue, but you could do some outdoor events and smaller events with the community. And then D is more of a traditional looking banquet facility where it overlooks onto the golf course, very traditional architecture style. And so we want to know which you like most out of these options. So we'll ask you to vote A, B, C, or D. Okay, it looks like the majority of votes were with A, the banquet facility with rental homes, similar to Barnsley Garden. Followed very closely by the University of Michigan example of the prairie style. The next section has to do with streetscape elements and really what makes a quality streetscape. We talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of creating pedestrian-friendly spaces where the stores and retail open up to the sidewalk, accommodating multiple modes, so not just the automobile, but the pedestrians and the cyclists, enhancing the space with landscaping, and then having parallel parking as a buffer to cars moving by. And so we have a series of streetscape examples that we're going to ask you to tell us your opinion on. This being the first one here, you can see a large sidewalk with street trees and then retail and restaurants opening up onto that street with outdoor dining. Okay, this one has the majority love it, very few dislikes on this one. This next option is a pedestrian street. No automobiles move through this, more of a plaza type setting. So very wide sidewalks for pedestrians and or cyclists. You can see seating areas in the center and retail and restaurants flanking either side. Okay, this one again has a majority love it and like it, with only 8% dislike. Okay, this next option is what we call a green street. So the landscaped area actually filters stormwater runoff from the street before it gets into the stormwater system. In this case, it's a smaller sidewalk, but a lot more green. This may not be something we'd see on the main street. This may be somewhere else in the development. So we're looking at different street types throughout, but we just want to know your initial reaction. Do you love it, like it, or dislike it? Okay, this one is a majority dislike. Again, don't forget to leave your comments in the chat section so we know what it is that you dislike about it. This next street is actually Las Ramblas in Barcelona. And so it is a very large sidewalk with a narrow street to the right, large old growth trees, a lot of room for events to happen. You can see markets set up and outdoor seating. Okay, this one is a majority love it, with followed by like it, and about 17% dislike. The next slide in terms of streetscapes has to do with medians. So some streets will have medians, some will not within the development, but we wanted to look at different types of medians. A being really colorful with flowers, B dealing with stormwater runoff, C being more planters with planted trees, and D being an option to have a sidewalk or a trail down the center for pedestrians and cyclists. And so we're going to ask your opinion on what you think about these median types. Please choose your first choice. Okay, it looks like D is the preferred option at 68%, and the opportunity to let pedestrians and cyclists move through the median. Our next section has to do with traffic mitigation. As Michelle mentioned, this really came up in the survey in terms of transportation concerns about what does a development like this really attract to the area in terms of new traffic. And so we want to, one, talk about what that looks like, but then also what are some of the strategies to mitigate that. And so in full development, which we're looking at a full build out of the site in about 2040, it's almost 60,000 new automobile trips to the site. And that's dispersed throughout the day. So there will be peak times where more traffic will come, but you know, similar to what happens in any district when you have an office peak or retail and restaurant users. So it will be distributed throughout the day. That does not include people who are going to take MARTA and bike and walk. We've already pulled those numbers out of the amount of trips to the site. But the good news is that's not all coming on one street or coming in and out of one intersection. And so this is a very traffic engineering map, but what it does show us is the percentages of the traffic that will come to the site from different streets. So you can see the majority is going to come from Camp Creek Parkway, primarily from the interstate, and enter in at Rhodes Street, about 35%. Second, we have about 15, then down to about 10% of the traffic coming off Main Street into the development through the historic streets, that front there. And then we have about 10% coming out Fairway Drive to Washington. And in some cases, that's going to take Washington all the way back down to Camp Creek, likely hitting 285. So we're able to distribute traffic well because there is such a good mix of street infrastructure already existing. But as you can see, these are the areas that are going to be hit the most. So we've got the main entrance here at Rhodes, where we've got about 35% of the traffic is going to come here. We have about 25% of the traffic is going to come in at Conley. And then along Main Street, it will really be distributed, but mainly at Harvard. And so the great news is that we are doing a development of regional impact study, which is required by the state and by the regional commission here in Metro Atlanta. And we are looking at what the impact of this traffic is to not only this site, but the region. So we're working with partners in neighboring cities, the airport, to really understand what this means. And what we found so far, which is really great, we don't need to widen any roads. We do need to do intersection improvements, dedicated left turn lanes, dedicated right turn lanes, specifically at these intersections highlighted here. But as I said, one of the great things about this development and about having a historic downtown to connect to is that you have a grid structure that already exists. And so we're able to capitalize on that, really use these historic streets to get people in and out of the site and not clog up one area or one intersection. In terms of other traffic mitigation strategies, we're also looking at how do we design the roads. And so as we improve these intersections and intersections throughout the development, we'll be looking at how do we make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists and really slow traffic down. And so one option is to make smaller radii for the actual turns. And you can see here on the left, a large radii really encourages cars to move fast. I'm sure many of you have been in that situation. And it's easy to just kind of pull around a big curve. But when you get a tighter curve to the far right, it really makes you need to stop and slow down so you don't hit your tires against the curb. So we'll be looking at design strategies like that. We'll also look at some more creative options like creative crosswalks where we have art to showcase where the crossing is and allow vehicles to know that they've entered into more of a pedestrian zone. And so we want to pause here and let you all give your opinion on this traffic mitigation strategy in terms of crosswalks. Do you love it, like it, or dislike it? Okay, 54% love it, 32% like, and only 14% dislike. The next traffic mitigation strategy that we're looking at is a way to narrow the lanes. And so it's little bulb outs or little medians that are planted with landscaping. You can have art in these as well, but a way to slow cars down because the lane narrows at a certain area. And so we want to know your opinion on this type of traffic mitigation strategy. Okay, majority like it, followed by love it. Now, the last strategy has to do with incorporating art. And so this is specifically doing sculptures or large art installations at roundabouts or medians to really slow traffic down because there's something of interest for them to pause and look at. I'd like to get your opinion on this one as well. Okay, majority love this at 52% with 40% like. The next section has to do with transit access. And this is something that we looked at during our master planning. We have the College Park MARTA station very close by, an easy walking distance. And then we also have the SkyTrain, which comes from the airport over to the GICC. And so we see opportunities to connect better to both of those transit opportunities. The blue line here being a autonomous shuttle that would connect to the College Park MARTA station and run through the site, connecting all the way over to our office and entertainment districts. And then the dashed pink line being a potential connection to the SkyTrain, something that would connect people all the way back through the site, all the way back to MARTA. So what we would ask for your opinion and thoughts on are what types of transit facilities and vehicles would you be interested in using? A, being a streetcar, B, being an overhead system like the air train, C, a self-driving shuttle, and D, an enhanced bus. So similar to the public bus system like MARTA, but something a little more enhanced with nicer bus shelters, enhanced buses, maybe something a little bit longer. Okay, the majority likes option B, which is the overhead train system. followed closely by the self-driving shuttle, and then the streetcar. Next, we want to talk about multi-use trails. A component of this development is a 5K trail, which you can see highlighted here in yellow, which would connect to the Brady Trail and other trail opportunities like the pedestrian bridge that's connecting over to the GICC. We'd like to see this connect to the regional trail systems that the Aerotropolis CID and Alliance are working on. And so here are some options and opportunities to really enhance that trail. There being a 5K, the 5K that Tri-Cities already puts on could link into this trail system. Having retail frontage like the Beltline, and then also linking into local schools who have cross-country teams and are looking for opportunities and options for trail running. So we want to get your opinion on what types of multi-use trails you would be interested in using. A being a two-way track, concrete with a line down the middle so you know who's going in what direction. B, a separated bike lane. C, a concrete path, more multi-use for walking and biking. And D, more of a gravel path. So please choose your priority option. Okay, there was a tie here between A and C. A being the divided path and C being the concrete path, both very similar multi-use trails. So thank you all so much for taking the time to go through and vote on your thoughts. We're going to take that input and move into designing concepts for each of the districts. We will present that back to the mayor, council, and VITA on June 1st. And then we want to bring those concepts back to you on June 11th to get your input on how that, if we captured what you like and what you desire for this part of your community. We'll refine those concepts after we meet with you in June and present a final report back to the city council and mayor for approval, likely in July. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Artie to close us out.
Okay, well, thanks, Deanna. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, but please don't go anywhere yet. First and foremost, please visit www.collegeparkga.com for more information about the 6 West development. Join us for event number 3 that will happen on Thursday, June 11th at 4:00 p.m., where you'll see the vision that will be created, thanks in part to your contribution today. So please visit www.collegeparkga.com. Stay engaged and stay informed. We will now address as many of the questions from the chat room as time allows. I'll now turn the time over to Tori Hill of the collaborative firm that will summarize those questions, and the panel will address those questions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I will say, in following your chats, we were actually having a great conversation about the things that everyone seemed to like, more so than questions. I want to express to our group, as you are as I share these chats with you offline, just know that there's a lot of passion behind providing additional green space, walkability, less hardscape. In fact, there was a lot of passion about staying away from high-rise buildings and having anything that looks sterile. And what I was surprised to find out was there are conversations in our group, not necessarily questions, about comparing what has been done at Atlantic Station and only taking elements of that and putting that in the College Park area, but making more use of, again, green space. There was also a lot of passion around managing traffic. Deanna, when you got to those slides, I don't know if you saw the comments coming up, there was a lot of concern regarding managing the traffic and not widening Harvard and Fairway. And I didn't know if you or someone would like to address again just what's going on with the issues of what streets you're looking at widening or not widening, and why.
Yeah, I'll just give an overview. From the Development of Regional Impact Study, we have not seen a need to widen any streets. Just at intersections, we might need dedicated left lanes. And I believe our traffic engineer, Bill Rusum, is on the call and may have a couple points to add.
One thing we like to look at on these is how the intersections are affected. The fact that a lane might be added actually doesn't help if the intersection can't handle the traffic that we are putting through it. So we tend to concentrate on those intersections. One of the comments I saw was about Fairway, and the thing we look at on Fairway isn't so much how Fairway is operating as how Fairway at Washington is operating. And we do have some recommended improvements there, but the existing roadway network should handle the traffic.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Also, there was just a couple of statements by Noel as it relates to MARTA and any conversations with them. I noticed it came up a possible spur, whether it be a bus or a light rail. Is MARTA, Michelle or Deanna or Bill, is MARTA been approached about this project? Is there any coordination there that you could speak to?
I might defer that over to Bill, because the plan did anticipate taking advantage of MARTA and proposed some sort of interior circuit. But Bill might want to better answer that. Or Deanna, about circulating and connecting up to MARTA. How do we get from the station to the interior with some other transit?
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
I was muted, sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, MARTA was one of the major stakeholders, and I think one of the major assets you have in College Park. I mean, there's not many cities like College Park that have a MARTA station right in the heart of their center, and it was right in the center of this. And we even created the new Main Street that you see that is like I like the fact that we got a lot of votes for the Barcelona Main Street, because that's kind of what we were visualizing. And that street is right on axis with MARTA and takes you right to it. So we think MARTA is key to the assets of this site. And we have seen institutional investment look for MARTA site in the past 10 to 15 years. They've become real assets for a lot of reasons. They were definitely a stakeholder and are still a stakeholder. And the fact that that's one way to get to the airport or come from the airport, right? Your first stop. The SkyTrain is a very expensive way and it's cool, but you already have the infrastructure to get from the airport to this site or from this site to the airport with that MARTA station. So it's a very, very key component. And we looked at all kinds of circulators along with Aerotropolis, who's looking at how do we leverage circulators for the entire Aerotropolis region. And they were another major stakeholder. And again, MARTA plays a critical role in those discussions. Good question.
Okay. Here's a question. What thought has been given to activating the eastern boundary development to MARTA so transit riders have an easy, well, I think Bill just kind of touched on that, easy and intuitive path to entering Airport City through the downtown area? So.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is some of the crosswalk creativity and ways to get, we want to make a really strong visual connection. Yeah, that's the main axis right there, and it gets you down to the MARTA station. But when you actually get down to Main Street, how are you crossing? and you built some crosswalks, so you know, it might be connecting back to those. And there's also a trail system that's already funded. There's a bridge that goes from the convention center into around this green space that we have. And then it comes down one of those streets and comes right down to the MARTA. So everything gets connected. And, you know, when you do, the nice thing about, well, you have a really good planning team and everybody involved, but the nice thing about ARC is, you know, and funding mechanism, they'll insist on that connectivity. It helps with your funding to connect to MARTA because it's a positive regional impact when people are taking transit versus clogging up our roads. I think everybody can really enjoy, I mean, nobody really enjoys COVID, but they can enjoy the blue skies we've had. And the more we can, you know, continue to live that way and less pollution, the better. So you have a really good asset for where I think the world's shifting.
There is a question that came up. It's current economic conditions have our city moving towards dire circumstances. What contingency plans do you have to minimize upfront costs to avoid shelving this project entirely?
I'd be glad to address that. I think maybe even Artie can address that. But you know, this project has a lot going for it. The city owns the land at a pretty low basis. It has a tax allocation district, which helps finance the infrastructure. And I could explain that further if people want to know what a tax allocation district is. But the taxes that right now you're not getting any money on this property or very little. And as you do this development, you're going to generate more revenue for the city. And some of that revenue can go to a bond to help build this infrastructure. And then it's also an opportunity zone, a federal opportunity zone, which means there's money from around the locally and regionally and globally that would get a tax advantage for investing in this. So it has some really good fundamental. And then the thing that a lot of my developer friends are think about the current economy, and I do think COVID is going to have, we're going to have a post-pandemic reset in a lot of our planning. So really the timing of it for us to think about this is good as we get into the district plans as well. And wide sidewalks and landscape are all important. But you know, a lot of money is sitting on the sidelines waiting for deals. And as soon as as soon as those deals kind of show up, going to be money going after them, and we're going to see that we don't have that big of a recession. Is what I've heard from some my more optimistic developer friends. Who knows? We can't predict the future, but I think this is such a good asset. MARTA is a 100-year investment. The conference center is a 100-year investment. The airport's a 200-year investment. You know, it won't happen overnight. We could have a recession and stall it for 3 years like we did downtown Smyrna. But the plan will, it's just got too many good things going for it. But it will happen.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. One of which is, do you have a price point in mind for the town homes or homes at this time?
I saw that question.
Okay.
I would talk to the developer if he's willing to go public on the residential. But you know, you got a big range in College Park. You got a big range of you know, from, which is good. You have a mixed income environment, especially over here, which is always a healthier environment. New construction is very expensive. So my people that do townhomes, they tend to be a little more pricier than you would like them to be, but that's just driving it's just the cost of construction today. So I would say the residential developer would be the better person to answer that question, and he might not be ready to answer that.
Okay. There's also, let's see, I'd like the fact that there's a 5K element, but will the multi-use trails really be highlighted and more than a yellow line on the map? I love that Vancouver has a long path around their city where you can go from one park to the next playground, then to the next, and etc. This is what I mean by liking the pocket park concepts to really connect and emphasize. Yeah, this person referenced pocket parks early on.
We're not supposed to have favorites, but that's my favorite statement question.
Okay.
I'm a cyclist. I like that. And you know, as long as, we're working on it. We helped Deanna and helped Aerotropolis with the Greenway Trail plan. And it's kind of the culture down here. You're going to surpass downtown Atlanta in the Beltline because of how much trail enthusiasts you have down here. And it's really important. And some of the things you might not have voted. I'm a distance rider, multi-state bike rider, and I always use trails. And so I've seen a lot of these things, and some of the options that we'll be able to offer you. So it's safe, it's separated. It's also, there's a certain stress when you're walking on the Beltline because of the intensity. But when you can walk in nature and you can walk along water, it relieves that stress. So you're going to have a mix. We're going to make sure you have a mix. And what we didn't mention is this idea really came from beyond everybody's love for trail is one of the stakeholders was Woodward Academy. And I said, what do you need? I was hoping to get one of their facilities built over here. And they said, well, our kids need somewhere to run. They need a cross-country track. So, which may lead more of it being gravel. My son ran cross-country. So you want it softer on your knees, but there'll be some paved areas as well. But I think we're going to look at all that and make sure that happens, because I just think that's what people need for stress release. They need it for a more pleasant way to get around than getting in a car and going to the next. And it also brings the city to nature. I mean, I'm a big fan, so that's a great question.
Okay, we have a question. I believe this is probably to Artie. Since we do have new city leadership, has there been new discussions regarding bringing in a master developer versus the city acting as the master developer? Artie, are you there?
Hello.
There he is. He was mute.
Since we've had new leadership coming in, there has not been a conversation of having one master developer to come in. The great thing about the scenario that we have now in going after multiple developers for the numerous districts that we have is the ability for us to diversify and not put all of our eggs in one basket. With us having a number of different developers who have expertise in different areas, it provides the city of College Park with the flexibility to control our destiny instead of selling all of our property to one master developer and hoping that over a given 10, 15, 20-year period of time that the development is built out to the likings of the community. So there has not been a conversation of a master developer for the entire facility, but a number of different developers that have expertise in various disciplines.
Great, thank you. And this is the first question of this type that I've seen. It asks, has there been any thought to technology infrastructure like city site-wide wireless?
I could speak a little bit on that. The thing about this particular development, 6 West, is that it will be a smart city. And we are making sure that we will have all of the necessary infrastructure at the beginning of this particular project, so that we will be able to have Wi-Fi throughout the development. We are looking at having, autonomous vehicles, which they require a great deal of data going back and forth. So we have to have fiber throughout the development. So those are the things that we are looking at. So this development will be, like I said, have the necessary infrastructure to have Wi-Fi as well as a number of other technological advances.
Wonderful. Now we have a few more questions that keep coming up as it relates to the residential development of the property, and I think Bill referenced that the developer would have to speak to any cost. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All those extra questions, additional questions, even other than the residential questions, if they would visit www.collegeparkga.com, I would be able to provide them with more information, and maybe I'd be able to reach out to the residential developer to see how he would like to address those questions. So please visit the website after this particular program, and we'll be happy to address those questions.
Wonderful. And as a final question, When do you anticipate actual groundbreaking on this project?
It's funny that you would say that. We were actually, the groundbreaking was actually scheduled for 3 days prior to the shelter in place order. So of course we had to scrap it. We're looking at trying to do a groundbreaking, if not by the end of the summer, maybe the beginning of the fall, to do it. But of course, we're not sure what that will look like. With the social distancing in place, we were planning on having 300 to 400 people to show up for the groundbreaking, but I'm not sure of how we would be able to accommodate something like that. But if you would stay tuned, visit the website, watch College Park TV, our social media. We will let you know when that groundbreaking will take place. And more than likely, we'll have it available via Zoom or a virtual groundbreaking for those that may not be able to attend.
Sounds great. Thank you, Artie.
Welcome.
With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Gilia. Gilia Taylor.
Thank you, Tori, and thank you all for coming. It has been a pleasure having you today. I hope you've learned a whole lot about the 6 West development. And again, tune in to collegeparkga.com so that you can continue to get great information and stay up to date. We'll see you again. Hopefully you'll join us on June 11th at 4:00 p.m. If you go out starting tomorrow, there should be a link for you to register for another session like this, where we'll have more information about what your contribution has contributed to as far as the design. Thank you all for coming. Have a fantastic evening. Bye.